My name is Ben, and welcome to episode 1 of the Coach Dad podcast. So hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Coach Dad podcast. My name is Ben, and it'd be great if you could join me as I try to document and navigate my way through the world of grassroots football as a brand new football coach with little to no experience, coaching a brand new under-8s youth football team. What could go wrong? So before I take you back and get into a little bit about my story and how I became a youth football coach at the beginning of this season, I just want to have a quick word about what this podcast is all about and what I hope to achieve with it. So over the last few years, I've been involved in some way as a parent or a coach with both of my children in the world of grassroots football. And in that short time, I have come across and been a part and seen and heard so many different stories on all the various topics that there are in the world of grassroots football. And I'm hoping that over the coming episodes, I can dive deep into all those subjects and topics, pull them apart and give you my thoughts and opinions as both a coach and a parent. And off the top of my head, I can already think of so many things worth getting into and discussing. Things like game time for children, coaches, communication, sponsorship, kits, pitch conditions, facilities. The list is endless and goes on. And it really doesn't matter which side of the fence you sit on, whether you're a parent or a coach. Everybody's got an opinion on all the subjects that there are in the world of grassroots football. But before we dive deep into that, I want to bring you up to speed with my little team of ballers and where I'm currently at. But then after that, I want to rewind a couple of years and talk about the journey that led me to become a coach of a brand new under-8s youth football team. So my little football team, we are brand new this season. Most of the boys that I have were brand new to structured football this season with very little experience among the group that I have. I have one or two who did have a little bit of game time under 7s last season, and I have one or two lads who also play up a year for me. But as a collective, it's fair to say that we're fairly low ability. I call us like an entry level team, and I'll be honest, results have been not favourable this season. I can't talk about the exact score lines and results, but I will sort of allude to them as negative or positive results, and all our results this season have been negative.
Come on! When is it going to end, Robbie? I've had enough of it.
But they have been negative in a way that they started really, really negative, and now they're quite competitive negative. So we're getting closer and closer as the weeks go on, and I'm sure it won't be long until we see a positive results. Now, I follow lots of groups and pages online, and I see that there are teams who go, 2-3 years, and they're formed at a young age, and it takes them to under 8s, 9s, 10s before they get their first win. And when I took over the group, I looked about and I fully expected it to be fair, but that was part of the reason of wanting to become a coach. I think that over time I can coach these lads and I can get the group together as a collective, train them up and get them where I want them to be, get them playing football in the right way. And I'm sure in time, as everyone develops, as all children develop at different times and different rates, etc., but we'll get there in the end, and I'm pretty certain, hopefully before the season's out, we might even get a positive result. But just going back to the weekend just gone, I'll try and keep it topical at the beginning of each episode and talk about the game that's just gone. So we've had a fairly ruptured schedule is probably the best way to put it, as the weather where we've been, as I've seen across most of the country, has been absolutely appalling, and we've missed so much football in the last 3 months, only playing a handful of games, missing multiple training sessions as well, as we're a small village team and we play on a small sort of village field, and we haven't got the greatest facilities, so when the rain comes, it tends to wreck a weekend's football. But we managed to have a game this weekend, and we were away, and the team we were away to were lucky enough to have a 3G pitch, which is a bit of a rarity in our area, but it was good to see the lads play on a 3G pitch. I actually really liked it. I've had my reservations about it, as I will get into the story fully in the next few episodes, but I actually ruptured my Achilles about 8 or 9 months ago. Snapped my Achilles about 8 or 9 months ago playing on a 3G pitch. So I sort of have my reservations on it, but this one was really nice. But yeah, to the game itself, it was half term where we are, so I had 2 or 3 lads away on holiday, plus my little lad Austin. He was not very well. He woke up on the morning of the game and he was sick, so unfortunately he couldn't play. Now my little lad, I'll talk about him as we go on. He's sort of obviously going to be a focus point of this as well, hence the reason I'm coach dad. A lot of the reason that dads end up becoming coaches is because their sons play, their daughters play, and they need someone to coach a team. But yeah, with my boy, he's fairly low ability, not the best in the world, and gladly admit that, and that'll play into a story in a minute that I'll get into. But yeah, fairly low ability, but the week before, he actually scored his first 2 goals for the club in a game and was absolutely sort of on fire that game, and he looked like he's sort of turned a corner and he's upped his game in practice. He's been in training, he's been on it, and it looked like he was turning a corner and getting a good run on. But unfortunately, sickness struck him down. So much like a lot of teams, I have 10 places available. It's 5v5, but you can have double the squad size, so I have 10 signed up. Throughout the season, I've never had 10, but so this weekend I only went into the weekend with 6 players. But that can be a blessing sometimes. You haven't got to think about substitutes so much, and it's easy to sort of change it up fairly quickly. So yeah, the game went ahead with 6 of the lads, and we actually got off to a flying start. And truth be told, we should have been up a couple of goals within the first few minutes. But as we always find, we found a keeper in the opposition keeper in champman form. He was on fire, and Woodwork saved them as well. And then, as is the way, we sort of lost away a little bit, and we went into the half-time break on a negative scoreline, but only a slim one. And then we came out in the second half, and it was we really did turn the corner there. We have a bit of a running joke between sort of in our band group. I know a lot of people use different things. Again, that'll be a discussion to get into later. Do you use WhatsApp, band, Spawn? There's all these different groups. But in our band group, we have this sort of running joke that we tend to be fairly competitive for a half, but then we have what we call the third quarter claps. So, when we come out the second half, we're sort of wary, but this was sort of a turn up for the books actually. So the boys came out on the front foot, and we managed to grab a couple of goals back, and it was looking sort of rosy, and then they managed to grab another one, but then we got another one back and we closed the gap a little bit again. But unfortunately the damage was done in the first half, and we could just not claw the game back. But all in all, that was one of the best performances of the season that I've had from my little lads, and they really did sort of start to implement things like passing the ball. Obviously these are under 8s with little to no experience, so sort of getting the lads to get the touch, get the head up and get a pass off is major for us. We did concede a lot of goals from goal kicks early on, just trying to clear our lines, but that's sort of gone away now. We don't sort of concede goals from silly goals like that anymore. But the little lads were really trying to get their foot on the ball and play some football, and it was if we're going to go down playing, I'd rather go down playing well like that instead of sort of making silly mistakes and all the rest of it. But as a unit, it was one of the best I've seen us play. But unfortunately, again, it was another negative result, and with that negative result, that takes our score to somewhere in the region of nearly 200 goals against this season. But that's how it is. One thing I'd sort of just want to make a caveat for that is goalkeepers. Now they say at this age that you shouldn't really pigeonhole players to play in positions, but most of the teams we come up against have a dedicated goalkeeper. Sometimes they even have 2, whereas us, we don't have anyone who really wants to play in goal. So what often tends to be the way as well is when you sort of go around all these football clubs and that some of the better players do tend to be the better goalkeepers as well. So I sort of don't have that luxury, as I say, with fairly low ability. So yeah, we just sort of I think if we had a dedicated goalkeeper, we would cut out 50 to 75% of the goals against, because they are just sort of pot shots, simple shots. Because some of the boys who go in goal, they don't really understand the finer art of goalkeeping, so they'll obviously so when a shot comes in, they'll lead with their feet, or they won't move right, they won't step up. We do try and sort of put on a little session in training every now and then, and before games and that, and fire in a few shots and that, but due to sort of limitations of where we are and training and time and that, it's just something we got to roll with at the minute. But as we move up to under 9s next season, I'm hoping to nail down that position. It is one of the only positions in football you should be allowed to nail down in youth age. You should be able to nail down being a goalkeeper, because outfield position is fair enough. You can play someone right centre back or up top or in midfield, but goalkeeper, you do have to be sort of dedicated, I believe, even from under 7s or 8s. And if you can get that position filled, then I think you're well away. But yeah, not for us at the moment, but I'm sure as we grow, as we get there, that'll come, and we'll get a goalkeeper, and I'm hoping that will sort of stop the flood, essentially, the flood of goals. But yeah, so yeah, that was the weekend for one of my lads. My other little lad, Caleb, he plays under 12s football. And so I'm a parent to him, obviously not the coach to the other one, Austin, but a parent to this one. But yeah, Caleb had a game against a team in our local area. I won't sort of name names, but this team are a bit of a juggernaut. So I think they are the youth branch of a professional football club, essentially. And they play on a Saturday in a JPL league, a junior Premier League. And on Sunday, where my little lad plays, we play Sunday around here, we play under 12s football. I mean, they're not here to defend themselves, and I'm only going off hearsay, so I could be totally wrong on this, but good luck to them. That's what football's all about, really, winning. But yeah, I'm led to believe they sort of do a classroom session and 3 or 4 training sessions, as well as they play on 2 leagues on a Saturday and Sunday, whereas most of the teams at grassroots level, they just play there one day and they train there one day. I mean, that's just the nature of what it is. So my little lad Caleb, he went into this game, and I think he was sort of fearing the worst. They had played him at the beginning of the season. I think it was 6-1 in the end, or 6-0. And they don't often concede a goal. They don't, they often beat people by double figures in our little league. They always sort of sit at the top of it. But yeah, this game was moved from sort of a 10 a.m. kickoff to a midday kickoff, because again, the weather was really frosty where we were in the morning, so they wanted to give it a chance to thaw out. So the game got moved back a couple of hours. What that meant was a few players then became unavailable, I think. So they actually only went into the game with 9 players and a sub as well, whereas they normally have 3 or 4 subs. They only had 1 sort of sub. So they knew it was going to be a slog, but they went into the game, and whatever instructions the manager gave them, they went and played a blinder, and the game finished 4-2 in the end. They lost 4-2, but it was sort of a victory in defeat, if you will, as, like I say, they were 3-2 with a quarter of the game to go, and then the other team went away and sort of put the game to bed, essentially, and killed it. It was sort of fairly one-way traffic, but it was the way that my little lad's team defended till the death, essentially. They just got stuck in, they kept going, they never let it get on top of them, even though they saw very little of the ball. When they did have it, they tried to get forward. They managed to get a couple of goals. Like I said, I don't think this team conceded very many goals at all, if at all. They beat a team 26-0 a few weeks ago in a cup game, so that sort of just shows you the levels that they're dealing with. But again, that'll be a nice discussion to have a little later down the line, should certain teams be in certain leagues and all the rest of it. Again, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer on that, personally. I just think, you want to go test yourself against the best, so I'd rather my little boy play against these players. If he wants to know, if he wants to be a player and a good player, you have to test yourself against the best that's around. Some of the boys in the team that he played against, he's schooled with, have gone to high school or junior school, so he knows some of them anyway. And I tell him sort of, the reason they're so good is because they train a lot and they play a lot, and you can certainly see that. And I think it's good for them to go out there and get a test against a team like that every now and then. Yeah, that might stop, they might win the league every year and sweep up on the medals, but so be it. If you want to overcome that, you've got to put the performance in. And again, they're only 12 years old, so 11, 12 years old, so that I believe that if you're on your game and you have a good game, that you could be beating these teams essentially, but wasn't to be this weekend. So yeah, so that's where I'm at with my boys for this week in football essentially. So 2 negative results, but varying different reasons. That there's a lot of positives to be taken out of those negative results, and that's the way I go into coaching really. I said to my parents at the beginning of the season, we're a low ability team, so it might be a year or two before we end up winning a game, so the expectation is not there. I don't get too much flack from anybody. It's a long-winded process, and I'm willing to tough it out essentially, and I want to be part of building something, and hopefully as we go on through the years we can build something with these boys. And I haven't got any girls in a minute, so excuse me if I keep saying little lads and boys, because I don't actually have any girls, whereas my oldest boys, Caleb, his under 12s team, they have a girl in there, and you come across it, sort of mixed football now, but yeah, so yeah, apologies about that, but yeah, I will say my boys and my lads a lot, so because that's just the nature of what I've got. But as we go on, we'll grow. But yeah, so that's it for this week in football. But I want to sort of take you back now to the beginning of last season, actually, or actually probably a little bit further back, actually, to the summer of 2021, I'd say, where England got all the way to the finals of the European Championships, where they lost to Italy on penalties.
Saka has to score. It's saved by Donnarumma!
So before then, both of my boys had never really shown much of an interest in wanting to play football or be involved in it in any way, really. We have the odd kickabout in the garden. There's always a football about, because I used to play football. I've always loved football. I follow Norwich and always have done. I've seen him, win leagues. Seen him at Wembley and Cardiff back in the day.
Inside the Middlesbrough half, and it's nice one-touch passing from Norwich City at the moment. Howson gives it to Bradley Johnson on the left. He comes marauding forward in typical fashion. To Jerome, back to Johnny Howson. Howson's got support available on the right in the shape of Stephen Whittaker. Whittaker's low ball into the box to Nathan Redmond with a shot from the angle. Oh my goodness, it's two! It's two! Nathan Redmond with a composed finish beyond Konstantopoulos, and Norwich City have taken this playoff final by the scruff of the neck inside the opening quarter of an hour.
So yeah, I've sort of always had an affinity and love for football, always played it, but that never really rubbed off on my boys, and I didn't force them into it. I let them sort of find their own way. But the summer of 2021, Euro 2020, obviously moved back a year because of COVID. Both of my boys really did get the bug because it was on. It was a focal point. It was in England. England did well. They sat up with me and we watched a lot of football, and we really just got the bug as a family for it then. And it was plain to see that after that I was going to need to find both of them a football club for them to go and sort of try and play some football. Now, I'd been out of the world of sort of football for a good sort of 10, 15 years. I mean, I stopped playing in my late 20s, so I'd been out, but yeah, about 10 years. But anything to do with youth football, well, it's a different world from 20, 30 years ago, let me put it that way. It's just a different kettle of fish altogether. And again, I'll probably get into that and do some comparisons over time from when I played youth football to what it is now, and how sort of built up it is and established it is as a sort of network. And the way it's run is just, I think it's outstanding, really. But it can be overkill at times, I think. But yeah, the balance is just about right. But yeah, it's just a different animal. So what I did, I went online and obviously had a look around. I live in a rural village, Marham it is, in Norfolk, and we're sort of out in the sticks a little bit. I had a look about, and there's a fairly sizable town just down the road, and they have a large youth side to the club. So I see they did a little kicker session on a Saturday. So what I did was enrolled both my boys in that, and for a few months they went and played little kickers. And then come the summer of the end of 2021, the winter of 2021 and into 2022, my boys then started to sort of link up with individual teams within that club. My oldest boy, Caleb, he went and joined the under 10s for training with a viewpoint of playing for them for under 11s in the following season. And then my little lad, Austin, he was obviously only 5 or 6 at the time, so there's no football at that age. But there was going to be a brand new under sevens youth football team for the next season, and they were looking for players. So I put his name forward, and he became part of the group that started training on a weeknight for the under sevens for the season coming. And it's safe to say that the next year with this football club, I could probably write a book about, and that's just as a parent, on all the drama and all the things that happened. Again, I won't name any sort of names or anything like that, but there was so much that went on, so many negative things within a year, that I learned so much about it, and it's helped me both as a parent and a coach. Essentially, it sort of opens your eyes, and now on the other side of the fence as a coach and within a committee and a club and all the rest of it, I can sort of see different reasons, and this is for both teams, for my little lads, and I'll move on to documenting their journeys throughout that season. So my little lad Caleb obviously was sort of training with the under 10s, was going to be under 11s for the following season. That season come around, he started it really well. The coaches of the under 11s were absolutely fantastic. I get on with both of them. I still speak to one of them quite regularly now, and he's just sort of a young lad, but he has, the right idea, coaching badges, he structured sessions properly, he's sort of training programs and stuff like that, and he really wanted to be a coach that developed players and teams to play in a certain way. So yeah, my lad slipped in there quite well. He played a lot of games, pretty much in the centre of midfield, more of a sort of holding midfielder, did a lot of the dogs work and the tackling. He was doing all right. He did get upset that he didn't sort of score any goals, but then one wintry day in December or January, February, he just had this game where he turned up and he ended up scoring a hat-trick, and he bagged himself man of the match. So yeah, that was sort of great memories that was. I've actually got his penalty. He scored a penalty for the hat-trick, and I've got it on camera, and yeah, just fantastic really. It's sort of, both my lads are not goal scorers essentially, so when a goal does come around, it sort of means a lot within our household, and we do have a little scoreboard actually, which I'll get into later, where they tally up their goals. But yeah, so yeah, he was doing really well. But then around Christmas in 2022, I guess it would be now, we were called to a meeting, all the parents, and I just thought this was sort of a standard meeting, everyone, you have a meeting every now and then, and the coaches actually announced that they were going to step down from coaching the team within the club, and they were going to go and set up their own team. And the reason why is because of politics, essentially. I won't go into exactly why, but it was a lot to do with funding. This team that we were at, like I say, they were a semi-professional team in the lower regions of the football pyramid, and a lot of fees and money and stuff like that was geared up to going towards sustainability of the first team and paying wages and stuff like that. And they just weren't happy with how things were run in that regard, how things were divvied up and facilities and so and so. So they'd gone off and they'd scouted sort of the local area, and they'd found a place to set up a new club. And initially they kept it quiet, but asked the parents their thoughts on would they leave or would they go. And now it did put everybody in a bit of a position, I feel, but more so myself, because obviously this was my first year. I'd only been there 6 months with my boys, actually within a team, and this move would have took us even further away from where we're based. Like I say, we're in the sticks, and I sort of had reservations. I sort of said yes at first, but as it went on, I asked my boy, and he wanted to stick about. He had the option to play up for the club, or it was put to me by someone within the club, would I like to help coach the team if I stayed and my lad stayed and some lads stayed, and would I, give it a go and try to get a team off the ground, which I did essentially, and I tried to, but it became sort of clear over the summer that because it's sort of a very small area, it's a small sort of market town, small catchment area, that a lot of the local boys and girls were already tied up with clubs and whatnot. So it was, I think we tried, and we ended up getting sort of 6 players when we needed a squad of at least 9 to start with, and then 3 or 4 extras. So we were just sort of nowhere near as the sort of summer was getting on and people were playing friendlies, yet we only had sort of a few players to play with essentially. So But yeah, so that all come to a head, and we decided that because I wasn't going to get a team off the ground, that essentially it would be ideal for me to look for a new club for my oldest boy Caleb, which is what I did. And another small village a few miles in the other direction, a lad I used to go to school with and live near, he runs an under 12s now football team, and he was looking for players, so I just sort of pinged him a message, and a few messages later he ended up training with them and went away and signed up for them, and is actually sort of really enjoying his football. And the irony is that his very first game for his new team was against, and it was all by pure luck, by pure chance, was against his old team essentially, where they'd all moved to a new club. I think in the move 75% of the players went, other people left and found new clubs. So yeah, his first game did end up being against essentially his old team, and he actually had a really good game. They won, I don't know what it was, 5-6-0, 6-1, I don't even know what the score was. I know it was a comfortable game, and he actually got a couple of assists, and yeah, it was really good for him, quite nice. And yeah, so that's how his journey sort of started within that club and ended sort of, you got all them politics there of behind the scenes funding and coaches falling out and parents falling out. There's so much I could go into, and again, I'll dedicate an episode or two down the line to some of the subjects within it and how I dealt with it. But yeah, that sort of ended his journey with the club, and then started a new journey at a new club. So unfortunately, that's all I've got time for on this episode. In the next episode, I will get into my little lad Austin and his journey within this club and how it all fell apart and turned to shit essentially. But I'll get into that and all the nitty gritty on the very next episode of the Coach Dad Podcast.